From vinyl music sounds to lively verbal go-arounds.
This is Into the Runout.
Well, friends, listeners, viewers, welcome to this episode of Into the Runout. I am Tony, and to my right is John.
Hello, Tony.
Hey, John, how you doing today, buddy?
Hello, viewers.
Hello, Ball. He addresses them all. Hello, Ball. Yes,
Look
folks,
it
I'll
up.
be here all week.
Look it up if you don't know what that skit is.
Exactly. So how you doing, buddy?
Doing good.
Excellent.
Can't complain. Taking one day at a time. How about you?
Literally taking one day at a time here. Down here in Tennessee, we were unfortunately smoked about a week ago by some wicked storms that rolled through this region to the likes that haven't been seen here in a very long time. Snow and ice combined to a degree on my car that when removed were these blocks that I can only describe as they look like stone blocks, but they were all just totally melted or iced blocks of snow. It was a sight I've never seen. We both lived through many a blizzard and many a snow accumulation in the Chicagoland area, and I've never removed that off the top and the hood and the trunk of my car. It was crazy.
I think I saw a picture of that on the interwebs.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll
it
throw
was-
that up here on our video so people can
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah, it was something. And now, because our apartment complex didn't treat the actual roads in our complex, I'm driving all of the residents here. We're driving our cars on an ice skating rink. It's like, oh my goodness, it's a miracle that I can actually drive out of this complex and get on the road.
Well, in between digging myself out of the driveway every so often, I was practicing my disco moves. Getting ready for today's show.
How apropos the disco moves, because, ladies and gentlemen, there is a segue to that statement. And as John said, we are going to be exploring an album today. It was the soundtrack to a well-known 1970s movie, and I think it's safe to say that the soundtrack definitely exceeded expectations and has taken on a life of its own far beyond the movie, as good as the movie was. And that movie and soundtrack would be, John? Yeah! Yep. There's John Travolta down there on the floor. And of course, the talented gentleman up there in the window there. That is Robin Berry and Morris Gibb, known, of course, internationally as the Bee Gees. And we're going to get the chance to tell you a little bit of a story about the Bee Gees and their ultimate involvement in the project and how it was kind of a twofold, a double-edged sword, so to speak, for the boys originally from Australia, but they swept into the national consciousness on an international level because of the songs of theirs that were used in the movie. And so we got all that to talk about.
Where do we begin? Go in the way, way, way back machine.
Hey, Mr. Peabody, where are we going today? Well, Sherman, we're going to go to the Wayback Machine back to the year 1977. Yeah.
The height of the disco explosion.
Yeah, the disco explosion. Yep. We were talking about the height. We're talking about,
of course,
the
it did
disco
start a little bit earlier, but
it did. But it was that same kind of time. Disco Inferno and Rick Dees and his cast of idiots gave us Disco Duck, and there was all kinds of stuff going on. Disco was everywhere.
Made you want to blow it all up.
So said the infamous Steve Dahl, who gave us Disco Demolition Night for my Chicago White Sox in, what was it, 1979?
Something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, it was an infamous moment in Chicago White Sox history that us White Sox fans, our true White Sox fans, have never lived down because we have to constantly try to defend the nonsense.
Yeah, and I guess you could say disco may have faded away or may have stuck around as it in its form that it is today, and it influenced future music. But when the Bee Gees got involved with this soundtrack and John Travolta and the whole combination, And all the other artists on this soundtrack, I mean, it just blew everything up tenfold,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah, literally. But for the Bee Gees though, it was kind of serendipity and as I referred to, the two-edged sword, because initially they weren't even going to be even involved with the project. Doing a little bit of research, I'd read about it years ago, because honestly, and this may sound crazy, growing up with the soundtrack, I never actually watched the movie, and it's still crazy to believe it or not. I've never actually sat down and watched the whole movie all the way through after all these years. Not because I wasn't interested in sitting down and watching it, but it was one of those movies where it was kind of more of a dramatic, serious film. And while we were raised to watch those films, that was one of the films that just never made it into our cycle of movies. How about you? In your home, was it?
Yeah, we didn't have the album when I was growing up. I did see the movie later on in life, but not when it was out. And back in the day, you couldn't stream it or go on YouTube.
No,
You had to
that's
wait for it to
true.
come on the what was it, the Sunday night movie on ABC or something like that. But
Yeah,
it never I
right?
don't think it ever did, and if it did, I wasn't
No,
interested in it, so
no, I don't think it ever did. I think that was a movie that, not because again didn't lack mass appeal, but
no.
it was one
And
of those.
when I think of sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but when I think of, John Travolta, I guess in that era, my go-to, aside from Welcome Back, Kotter, was, Rhinestone Cowboy was a good that's the movie I
Yes.
prefer to watch besides this movie. But as far as the music goes, I heard a lot of these songs on various 8-track compilations. That was the big thing back when we were little lads, and you'd have 1 or 2 of these songs on compilation, K-tel 8 tracks or whatever the case may be.
So just a little background here. It's obviously a double album, which we know. Prior to the release of Thriller by Michael Jackson, it was the best-selling album in music history. Still ranks among the best-selling soundtrack albums, with figures of over 40 million copies. So think about that. 40 million copies, and being a double album, we're talking about 80 million albums.
I guess
I
you
mean,
could say
it's like, because I heard Frank Stallone talk about that years ago when he was being interviewed for his involvement in the follow-up movie, Staying Alive. But John Travolta infamously insulted the Bee Gees, and the Bee Gees departed from the project. But there was a dilemma, because Robert Stigwood, who produced the follow-up movie, of course, managed the Bee Gees. So then what do they do now that the Bee Gees have been insulted by John Travolta? And Frank Stallone tells this funny story. He was on this talk show, and he's imitating Travolta. No! It's like, look, you insulted the Bee Gees, John. But then Frank talks about going to his brother, and he just wants to just get just a small little music bit so he can pay his rent, basically, because he had lost his record deal. So he goes to see his brother, big wig at the studio, and Sly's going, I don't think so. It's like, well, thanks, there, brother. But eventually he gets involved.
this would be a good reality show.
God.
Call it disco drama.
Right? But yeah, I
Little,
said all that to say that the Bee Gees were supposed to be involved in the follow-up, but their involvement in the initial, even Saturday Night Fever, was a case of just kind of dumb luck, because when they were doing the movie, Travolta told the story numerous times that while they were actually filming those scenes throughout the movie and dancing, they were dancing to Stevie Wonder and Boz Scaggs. And they were actually going to use Boz Scaggs as Lido Shuffle in the movie, but of course, Boz Scaggs' record company said no. So think about being the record company that has Boz Scaggs, and they're about to use the song that was recorded for their company, but they don't want to use it in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, the whole way this soundtrack came together was crazy. And then, as the way I understand it is the Bee Gees didn't record the soundtrack according to the movie. They never saw the movie. They wrote these songs and recorded the songs, and then they kind of, I don't want to say made the movie around around the Bee Gees music, but sort of they did.
Yeah,
they timed this with the infamous walking scene at the beginning was just kind of fell together, and it just went on from there.
Yeah, and I think that's whoever was ultimately involved in the incorporation of the music, and that again just speaks well of those people in the industry, whether it's a John Williams or a Bill Conti or Hans Zimmer, they have this amazing ability to find music or create music that syncs and flows with scenes in the movie where you feel like, okay, was this scene built for the song or was the song built for the scene? They're so interchangeable, you can't tell. And that's really was the wizardry and the genius behind this movie. Whether it's John Travolta walking, John Travolta dancing, whatever's going on, they just got the right songs inserted into those moments of the movie. And it just feels like so organic, but it was so meticulously worked on and incorporated in that it's just, it's genius.
Yeah, it's art imitating art, basically. I mean, when you're trying to tell the same story and it's two different forms of art, ultimately it's going to come together. It's going to all make sense, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it did. And it sure did.
Yeah. And actually, composer David Shire scored the film. And of course, at the time, he was married to the famous actress Talia Shire, who, of course, was Adrienne Balboa.
Adrienne.
One of the sisters in The Godfather. And, he also, as a little plug, he scored the soundtrack for the original The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 from 1974 with Walter Matthau, which, ironically, John Travolta starred in the remake, 15, 20 years later. But he was one of those just very, very talented, again, composers who had sensibility of knowing how to incorporate the right music in the right scene. And I'm blown away by that gift and talent.
So let's get into the tracks.
Yes, we got a whole load of them, as we can see.
We're going to look at the back. Oh, you got the back too. I got a back, but let's look at yours.
Yeah.
What do we got?
So, well, obviously we see Yvonne Elliman down in the corner. We've got the band Tavares over in the other corner. You think about it,
and in the other corner.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yes, there they are. Yeah, I mean, pretty
stylish.
It's very stylish, which they were definitely the acts of the time, whether it was Earth, Wind, and Fire or Kool and the Gang or whoever it was. Bee Gees' contributions are obviously huge. Staying Alive, How Deep Is Your Love, More Than a Woman, Night Fever, You Should Be Dancing. Wow. 5 sensations. If You Can't Have You, a Barry Gibb composition done by Yvonne Elliman. And ultimately, there's a great version that the Bee Gees eventually did of that song, which is equally marvelous. A Fifth of Beethoven by Walter Murphy, which, of course, we know real well. It's one of those timeless songs.
One of my favorite.
Yeah. Open Sesame by Kool and the Gang. Disco Inferno by the Tramps. Manhattan Skyline, which is another wonderful instrumental. In fact, Manhattan Skyline, for those Chicagoans, you might remember back in the day, I remember it, I think it's like one of those songs that was played in the background for some of the local television stations. You would hear that song consistently playing in the back of television advertisements and things. It was just one of those timeless little songs. Boogie Shoes by Casey and the Sunshine Band, and a few others that are in the midst of the album too, but just a stunner. A
lot of standouts, a ton of standouts. Man, there's so much to say about this soundtrack, and I don't even know where to begin. I have so many things that I wanted to talk about and can't remember because I watched a documentary a while ago about the Bee Gees, and they talked endlessly about the soundtrack, but a lot of things stood out as far as some of the things we already talked about where they didn't watch the movie when they made this, so that's recorded the songs and things like that, but also where the falsetto came about. That's an interesting story in itself.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us about the falsetto story, John.
Well, I mean, it's not anything that really was planned.
Right.
You know, the Bee Gees never really did a falsetto on purpose before. I guess in the 60s, it was kind of like more of a filler in the background kind of thing. Never really stood out on a song. But then as time went on in the 70s, they started kind of putting them out into the forefront as far as doing the falsetto goes. And then back in 75, while recording Main Course, Barry Gibb accidentally sang falsetto. And then the producer, Arif Mardin, he said, don't lose that. Keep that in your back pocket. We'll use that later. And they did. So I guess Nights on Broadway was probably the first where they put it on the forefront, and Jive Talkin', a couple
Yes.
big hits in 75. And then a
Yeah.
whole bunch, pretty much every song, I think, on the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack.
But you're right, though, because Nights on Broadway, it's like it kind of was one of those things that Barry kind of did at the end of toward the end of the song. But you can hear that unmistakable falsetto ringing through. And yeah, like Main Course too, I was just browsing around YouTube and I pulled up a wonderful concert that the Bee Gees did that was on the famous concert series that was shown on public television in the 70s called Soundstage. And the Bee Gees got their moment to shine around about 75, and they were just in the middle of working on the music for Main Course. But up to that point, the Bee Gees had been this very, very well-known and successful act that played a brand of music that was very soulful, very melodic. Obviously the harmonies and songs that to the bass that followed them and loved their music, they were no strangers to the success of the industry. They gave us songs like How Can You Mend a Broken Heart and Run to Me and I've Just Got to Get a Message to You and Lonely Days, Lonely Nights, Holiday, I Started a Joke, New York Mining Disaster 1941. They were all featured eventually in an album called Bee Gees Gold. But you just listen to those songs and you realize that these guys are absolutely just incredible musicians, incredible singers, incredible arrangers. The ability to take a song and add the depth and the layers and just the musical craftsmanship. I mean, if there was a band that was capable of replicating something totally different because of their rich musical talent, it would be the Brothers Gibb. And they certainly showed that by the songs that were ultimately recorded and a part of this soundtrack.
Yeah, their voices definitely meshed together very well. And I think that was something discussed on the documentary I watched too. They spoke on how when you're related to someone like brothers, your voices seem to mesh together better because you have some similarities in your vocals anyways. If you talk to your brother or whoever it may be, you're going to hear you say the same words, kind of the same, or you kind of sound a little bit the same. And when you sing, that works as well. And when they sang together, it just all worked so well. Now, the rest of it, they didn't really get along with each other. And there's a whole backstory to that. But when they performed and when they sang, everything just worked like magic.
Yeah, absolute magic. Yeah, but you're right, though. There was a time where Barry and Robin kind of had a falling out, and Robin wasn't even in the fold, and then kind of came back around, and the Bee Gees kind of found their footing again. So there was that kind of family thing going on that was pretty intense for a time.
Yep. I think the most popular song is probably the opening song, Staying Alive, on the album. And every time I hear that song, it used to be, I would always imagine John Travolta taking the steps. That's what I always thought of when I heard that song. Yeah. But now I think of, and I don't know if you know this, I assume you do, but all I think of is CPR. And I don't know if you've heard where that origin came from. They use medical staff or whoever's performing CPR professionally, they use that song and that tempo and that beat. And it's actually officially in. So just imagine the song in your head. And that's the speed you're supposed to do CPR.
Wow.
And they actually use that in training, which is weird. And I learned that on the TV show The Office. That's a show that we've watched in the house, and they did that skit in the show, and I'm laughing because I thought it was funny, but then I find out later it's true. And don't quote me on that, and don't use me for medical advice.
Right? Yes, we are not medical professionals.
No.
We are not trained or equipped or, we don't have certifications to give or offer medical advice in any way, shape, or form. But if you do want to attempt CPR on your significant other to get in the mood to do some disco dancing, you're welcome to do as many compressions to the beat of Staying Alive as you want.
I may need CPR after the disco dancing.
Right? But yeah, an absolute incredible track. And and it definitely showcases Barry Gibb's incredible falsetto and the harmonies, the beat, the rhythm. everything about the song is just smash hit written all over it.
All right, so other hits besides Staying Alive, we have Night Fever, which is a
Night
great
Fever.
sounding, smooth disco
Oh
song.
yeah, absolutely.
Topped the
Yeah,
charts in multiple countries.
yeah, wonderful, absolutely wonderful, great song.
One of my favorites by the Bee Gees on the soundtrack is "How Deep Is Your Love." That's just a great sounding love song.
Yeah, and it's a song where you really don't hear Barry Gibb's falsetto. You hear Barry Gibb's natural voice, and you just realize how smooth and how just soothing and inviting it is to just listen to him sing. And of course, the joining of the harmonies of Robin and Morris, and you get a little bit of falsetto kind of in the background, but
A little bit,
it's just,
but it's
it's
great.
just,
Yeah, it's great filler. It's one of their best written songs.
yeah.
And the way that harmony all comes together in crescendos,
Oh,
and then you hear a little vibrato as that's happening. I mean, it's a really good. I mean, the
yeah.
song sounds great.
Yeah, and again, because they were so masterful with their harmonies, it just, it was just a showcase so magnificently in these songs in the movie. It just makes their contributions even more timeless.
Yep. And then More Than a Woman. They've got
Another one.
Bee Gees and Tavares
Yep,
both doing that one.
yeah,
What's your
both
favorite
take
version?
it's the Bee Gees, but I mean I certainly love Tavares' version.
Different take. And I can hear that version more in a club, I think, Tavares, than the Bee Gees version. But
Yeah. And again, there were so many great, artists out of that 1970s era, like Tavares, Kool and the Gang, and Earth, Wind and Fire were soulful and funky and groovy and just talented. I mean, Kool and the Gang being a unique example, it took me probably, I don't know, 35 years to finally realize that that little instrumental track that Rocky Balboa was listening to in his apartment while he's looking in the mirror, reflecting back on his life, was Summer Madness by the Boys. And I'm like, one day I'm listening to him, like, wait a minute. I'm like, wow, crazy.
it was always back, before the internet. I always remember finding gems like that. And you have that moment of epiphany. It's like you just struck oil or just found gold. It's just the interesting things that just appear when time was ready to tell you, hey, I know that song. And now you could just be like, I wonder what that song is. Rocky.
Right?
What's the song when he's looking in the mirror?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with the web now, and of course with AI.
Yeah, that's no fun.
No fun at all. I mean, for us, it's those epiphanies that you get.
And I think that's why it sounds like, and especially you, but I think that's why it sounds like we retain so much information. Because now I feel like when you can just go to the internet and type, this is what I want to know, and it tells you, you have no need to remember that.
Right.
You could just tell yourself, well, if I forget, I'll just look it up again. And then you just move on. But
Right.
back in the day, we're like, I'm going to remember this so I can tell everybody, so I can, sound like I'm smarter than everybody else, or have something in conversation to talk about when I'm, talking about music with somebody.
Oh, absolutely.
And share the knowledge. But now it's just like, I don't need to remember that. I'll look it up later.
No, but you're right, though. We were fortunate to be a part of that generation where, if you wanted to look further, you had to go to the local library and do some research and, do the Dewey Decimal System and connect yourself to books, periodicals.
Yep. And get the Penguin Encyclopedia of Music.
Exactly. Yes.
Got to have all those resources. But now,
it is to say that, what we were fortunate to be exposed to, has served us well because, we can reflect back on something and say, not only can I tell you about that, but, we lived it. We lived it. We experienced it. We listened to it and it's in our, it's in here and here. And there's something great about that.
You Should Be Dancing. Great song.
Another great song. I mean, the Bee Gees were just hitting the bullseye. They were shooting off rockets.
It's got those little Latin drums or bongos or conga drums. I can't really tell what they are in the background, so it gives it another layer.
Yes.
Which there was a lot of Latin influence in this time period with disco music. I mean, those
Yeah.
conga drums and the percussion especially really stood out in a lot of disco songs.
Yeah, well, Salsation by the David Shire's contribution, very Latin infused, very you can see, and of course that would make sense on one level because when you're talking about New York City in the 1970s, you had an infusion of Hispanic and Italian and various European cultures and African American, and they were all colliding.
Well, it's
You
no
know,
secret different types of music was born on the streets back in the day.
yeah,
People just hung out together and just sang or played music or whatever the case may be.
yeah. And even the songs of the 60s, when they were doing the cha-cha, it was literally uniting, the races in a way that no civil rights message, no sermon, no speech, no plea, no persuasive exhortation could do. The music was doing it.
For sure. And I remember this song. I don't know if have you ever seen the Despicable Me movies with
No,
the
but
little yellow minions?
oh God, yes, yes, yes.
This song was in that movie as well, one of the movies.
Ah,
So you could see the little minions dancing around. So
so yeah, but and then let me see, Jive Talking, of course, another classic. That's where the Bee Gees kind of gave us a little bit of more of a funky, groovy,
it's got a great
just
beat.
it's just there. All you got to do is just, move them lips and just, you could just recreate that vibe, that sound, that rhythm that they created. And then you go right again into Barry Gibb's slight falsetto, giving us just drawing us in and those harmonies,
And
stunning.
then the Bee Gees wrote, like we mentioned earlier, "If I Can't Have You." But Yvonne sung that one,
Yeah.
and this is one of the album's biggest hits. I mean, she knocked this one out of the park.
Yeah, and of course, you think of Von Elman, you think if I can't have you, but you also think of that French horn. Holy moly. I mean, I can't think of a better song where the French horn is so resonant in the song. I mean, you just hear that thing wailing away, and Yvonne's voice just so perfectly goes right into the song, and she sings it with such heart, such convincing conviction. I mean, a wonderful, timeless song.
Did you know, and I looked this up, so I didn't know this off memory, but I did look this up while we were researching for the show, that she got her big break in 1971, and she was performing as Mary Magdalene in Jesus Christ Superstar.
Wow, I
That's
do
where she got
remember
her.
reading about that somewhere.
Yeah,
Yes.
I thought that was very interesting. I did not know that about her.
Yeah, so somebody who obviously had an artistic, dramatic bent, because I mean, to be able to do that kind of a project, you got to have some musical chops.
So what else we got? Let's look at the album cover.
Let's look at it.
Refresh our memory here.
Let's refresh our memory. Well, I love "Open Sesame" by Kool and the Gang. They were riding the wave of a lot of success where Jungle Boogie, Get Down to It. They were demonstrating their musical chops, and once again, the era of the horns, the trumpets, the trombones, being incorporated into that funky, soulful, disco dancing style of music, and just a dynamite song.
I concur. Let's talk about one of my favorite tracks, "A Fifth of Beethoven." How'd this one come about?
That's
interesting.
A good question. It really is. I mean, you get
this
you
came
get,
out.
you get the
Go ahead.
yeah, you get that and then it just rolls into this funky, groovy, just now it's like, Beethoven and this song are inexplicably, tied together.
One of the biggest crossover novelty hits. I guess it would be considered a novelty hit, but I think it was it wasn't blatantly a novelty hit like Disco Duck or the Empire Strikes Back theme, the disco version. Those are kind of novelty-ish, but this, I mean, yeah, it was a remake, kind of, and a mashup, but I don't think it was novelty. I think that's unfair.
No, and like even Miko's version of the Star Wars theme, same thing. More novelty than anything. But yeah,
I would say so.
I think If Fit the Beethoven was more than a novelty. I think there was a deliberate attempt by Walter to create something that was very, very obviously an inspiration, which, I mean, name me a person who has any musical background that wasn't influenced at one time or another by Beethoven. I mean,
exactly.
And so to go from there and take that little, thing and then create something that was so unique. I mean, I think to call it a novelty is marginalizing and limiting the musical creativity of that song.
Bust of Beethoven behind me is very upset about that comment. He does not consider it a novelty.
No, he has given a stone face to that comment and will remain stone-faced until further notice.
I'm looking at the liner notes on the inside here, see if I can get any little tidbits.
Ooh, the liner notes.
That's the place. That's where you look.
You're right.
See who produced, see who played on the album.
Yeah, I have not looked at this one lately to see the what we have going on here.
The only thing I'm upset about is they don't have the insert that you can throw on the floor and practice your dance steps.
Right. Yeah, how dare they?
I have a copy of it's called Disco Inferno. And it kind of ties into the Tramps, but it has the floor plans that you can throw on the floor and practice the hot chocolate and all sorts of different dances.
Yes.
But I wouldn't pull. It's probably fall apart if I brought it out now. It's seen better days.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to think. Now you said the hot chocolate. I'm trying to think of some of the other dances that were popular in that time. Gosh. There was one that I remember dancing to in first grade with dear Miss Levsey, because she would play Disco Inferno and songs like that. And I'm trying to think, was it the Hot Fudge or the? Oh God! Now
well, think of I got a list here. We'll read them off.
Yeah.
But think of a very popular disco song. It's almost an instrumental.
Oh, the Hustle. The Hustle.
Yeah, that's a dance. Yeah. That's a dance.
Oh, that's right.
Awesome.
It was a dance.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we got the Bus Stop.
The Bus Stop. That's it. The Bus Stop.
I've never heard of that.
That was the one that we danced to in first grade. The Bus Stop. Yeah, that was. Yeah, and I want to say we even had the little things on the floor to kind of guide us, if I remember properly. Yeah, it was the Bus Stop.
This is a line dance, super popular in discos and still shows up at weddings. Interesting. I've not seen the Bus Stop at a wedding lately, and I've been to quite a few weddings.
No. And honestly, I don't think I'm the DJ in my wedding. I can't remember what he may or may not have played that was disco infused, because obviously, I wasn't out there every waking moment, thankfully, because if I had been out on that dance floor every waking moment, I would have woke up 6 levels more hunchback than I was when I did wake up the morning after, because I had been doing the conga line to the Copacabana for about 10 minutes. And, I woke up and I'm like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I'm like, oh, baby, what happened? And she's like, your feet never left the dance floor the whole time you were out there. I'm like, oh, yeah.
All right, I got a couple more here. We got the bump. You just bump the hips. That's the bump. Then you got the robot. Everybody knows the robot. Go ahead. What?
I'll bet you the bump. That was probably referenced by probably MC Hammer. You can't touch this.
Maybe.
Slide. Move your rump just for a minute. Let's all do the bump. Bump, bump. Yeah, can't touch this. That's probably him referencing the bump.
That's it. That's it.
Wasn't even thinking about that. Wow.
That's it. You can't see
I
the
love
bump
it.
though with those big parachute pants. You can't see him. Then you got the robot.
The robot, yes, of course.
Can you do the robot? I'm not going to stand up and do it. So
no.
YMCA,
I mean,
don't consider it. Yeah,
well,
not.
It was funny watching a clip many years ago of the Village People on American Bandstand, and everybody in the place was doing the whole thing, and the guys were like, "Wow!" They hadn't caught on to the phenomenon that kind of happened on the dance floor. Or it might have been Soul Train or Bandstand, but it was one of those places where everybody was just doing the YMCA. And I mean, because you had Bandstand, because you had Soul Train, because you had so many, of those dance related shows, a lot of those songs kind of grew out of an organic reaction that people had to what they were listening to.
And then the last one, I know I've seen you do this one, the funky chicken. I know I've seen you do it. You just don't know you did it.
Oh my goodness.
That's all the dances I have for you.
But yeah, the bus stop, that was a memorable one that I remember as a boy. That was definitely, that was a big one. Big one in my memory bank. So
yeah, well, obviously that's what this movie was about, was dancing, disco clubs, nightclubs. John Travolta, a very good dancer in his own right. I believe he was taught by Danny Terrio, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't know guys were that good at dancing. I wasn't into, Fred Astaire and all that stuff at the time.
No.
You usually see the girls dancing in the background and the guys singing. So this is the very first time I've seen, a male performer doing dances, and it was very impressive.
Yeah. But
I was never a dancer myself, but I was impressed for sure.
Right. And thank God as we got older and we broadened our movie horizons, we came to appreciate a Fred Astaire, a Gene Kelly, a Donald O'Connor, just hoofers, just guys that just, they were so good. I mean, Singing in the Rain, American in Paris for Gene Kelly, and the Astaire Ginger Roger movies, Swing Time, Top Hat. Movies now that you can watch, regardless of the age that you are, you can appreciate just their talent and the way they infused music and movement together, creating something timeless, wonderful that you just you never forget it. It really is timeless. It's an art.
And there was never a time, I don't think, that music focused on dance as much as the disco era, I think. And I think that's why the soundtrack worked ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, the album has become as much a part of culture, I think, as any soundtrack has ever been. And it saddled the Bee Gees with a bit of a challenge, because they fought then just endlessly to try to break away from that disco label. And again, based on the aforementioned songs from what we talked about earlier about them, they were these incredible, soulful, melodic, even slightly funky in their musical palette. To be pigeonholed into disco was a great disservice to the brothers and what they possess as artists and singers and arrangers.
Unfortunately, it was part of the nature of the beast, and it kind of worked out for, some of the other artists too, like Yvonne Elliman. She shied away after disco got such a backlash, and she really never did have anything super successful after that. But the Bee Gees still went on and still did things. Barry worked with Barbra Streisand and had some solo stuff, and Andy came around and started doing his own thing. So the brothers were helping him out. So they still had a lot of success afterwards.
Oh yeah, and of course, right at the time when Saturday Night Fever was rolling, Grease had come out. So Barry's contribution to Grease was, of course, a #1 song for Frankie Valli. And I remember in your Billboard book of #1 hits, I think there was maybe like a 5 song block where a song either written or performed by Barry Gibb had gone number one. I mean, some unprecedented, never replicated, duplicated sense because of the success of Grease and Saturday Night Fever around about the same time. It was just stunning.
Yep. That's why it's important to read those liner notes, because that's not something that they advertise.
No,
So you have
absolutely
to
not.
look and research that to know that. But
Yes.
definitely a substantial run in the Billboard 100. Well, I think unless you have more to add, I think instead of going off on a Bee Gees tangent, we'll save that for a Bee Gees episode, because they definitely deserve one.
Yeah, which one day we undoubtedly will. We can certainly talk about the brothers, and we can expound on a lot of those early songs. If you want to give yourself a little bit of a Bee Gees primer, go back and look on YouTube for their soundstage performance. You'll be thoroughly entertained and thoroughly blessed by just their musical talent. It shows you a dimension that Saturday Night Fever only gives you a small taste of their just dynamic musical palette and expression. I just absolutely just a great group, and we can't wait to feature them in a future episode.
Well, as always, we thank all of our subscribers for tuning in on YouTube, and then also listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and everyone else that streams podcasts. But for Tony and myself, we want to thank you for listening in. And until next time, where the music fades,
the discussion begins.
See you on side 2.